Welcome back to Mean Streets, the podcast where we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir and more. I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And we are your cinematic sleuth, and it's time to crack another case. Matt, what is on the docket today? What have we got for the people?
Today we are delving into 1958's Machine Gun Kelly, which stars Charles Bronson, Susan Cabot, and Morey and Amsterdam. Written by R. Wright Campbell and directed by the great Roger Corman. The IMDb longline is the criminal exploits of public enemy number one George Machine Gun Kelly during the 1930s. Based, of course, on a true story of Machine Gun Kelly.
Indeed, the real Machine Gun Kelly.
The real Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah. Well,
this one you've seen before, Luke?
No, this is a new one. This was a new one. I know the name, and obviously I know Charles Bronson.
Yep.
But I know Roger Corman. But I had not seen Machine Gun Kelly. It's not easy to find. It's not on streaming services. I watched it on YouTube.
I watched on YouTube as well.
Yep. I was surprised that you couldn't buy it digitally anywhere. And I mean, there were a few DVDs out there. So it's one of those old film noirs that is hard to come by, I think. Which every once in a while we come across those. And as long as it's on YouTube, it gives us a way to cover it. But some of them we've tried to cover was like, oh, there's actually no way to access this.
Nowhere to access it. Yeah, this did take some tracking down, and I'm surprised because it's pretty much Charles Bronson's sort of first lead role.
It is his first lead role.
His first lead role. Yeah. I think he'd been an extra in things and uncredited and all that business. But given the career he went on to have, I'm surprised this isn't a bit more well known than it is, just for that fact alone.
Yes, maybe the double hitter of this is Roger Corman's, I think, first film noir, and also Bronson's first lead.
Yeah, and I think it's also the first Corman to get any form of critical praise in any way, shape, or form. So in a way, it's a film of firsts.
Yes.
Which, as I say, makes it strange that it's not more widely available. I reckon they could flog it on that basis alone. But
I think so. You could. What were your general impressions of this quick 1 hour and 23 minute film?
Yeah, 1 hour and 23 minutes. I mean, that B-movie material.
Yes.
But Roger Corman's famous for making movies out of like $50, isn't he? And really low budget stuff that have flashes of what I think are real greatness. I mean, his horror films based on the Poe short stories with Vincent Price and people like Jack Nicholson, giving them a chance really early on in their career. They are for what they are brilliant films in their own way. And I had certain feelings like that watching this. Certain scenes made me think, yeah, there's a touch of Corman mastery here. Particularly the very first bank robbery that we see, that's pretty much done all in shadow, and it doesn't go any further than the door of the bank. Probably because he had no cash, so he could probably only fit. He only had an outline of a door, and he makes the most of it, and that's what Corman does for me. He has no cash and makes the most of what he's got with ingenuity and and some real flashy cinematography in places. But quick, so quick. I think it was made in about a week, and
they said like 8 to 10 days. Yes,
8 to 10 days. Yeah, and
yes. But before we get into that, you're diving into behind the camera.
It's runtime. The point I'm making is runtime is just as quick.
Yes.
I mean, it rattles along. It rattles along at like nobody's business. So I was sort of I don't know. We'll get into it, but it wasn't what I was expecting to see.
Mm.
Um,
What were you expecting?
well, I didn't really know. I didn't really know. I didn't think it'd be like so quick and rattled through so sharply. Because there's almost no time to breathe, but a lot happens in
Mm.
that space of time.
Mm.
So I kind of came away with it almost in a sort of whirlwind. As if I'd come off like the Dodgems or something. But I can't say necessarily that I wish we'd not bothered.
Yeah.
It's a film I'm glad I've seen
Mm.
for a variety of reasons, which again we can get into, and some that I've already mentioned. What about you?
Yeah, it's a film I didn't walk away from regretting that I watched. I wasn't bored watching it.
Hmm.
The question of would I ever rewatch it is probably up in the air.
Yeah,
Um, we can reveal that towards the end of the film, or end of the review. But I think I agree with what you were saying that it had flashes of really cool stuff, really cool, cinematography, really cool
hmm.
tricks, in camera tricks. Um,
And some
some
quite
very interesting characters.
yeah.
I think there was for a B movie there was surprising depth to certain characters, not all,
Yeah,
but certain characters that I found compelling. And yeah, I agree that it moved quickly, but and there's also some rather shocking moments in that
yeah.
are borderline horrific, both with physical both all to do with physical cruelty.
Hmm.
Two instances. One with a cat, which we'll talk about later, but also one between one of the gangsters and a lady that we'll mention a bit later as well. That
Yeah, definitely.
I was really not expecting to happen. Um, so that was there. There is some genuine shock moments, and kind of reminders that you're dealing with really nasty people, but also complicated people, far more complicated than what I was expecting for a B movie.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's Corman. I think that's Corman's
Mm.
stamp on the whole thing, and really some good performances. Not
Yeah,
all of them, not all of them, but I think the central two characters, again, we'll get onto them, really are quite good in this, and
yeah,
rise above the movie's own limitations, very much so. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I was going to mention the violence as you were talking. Then that there are really some quite nasty sequences here,
Mm,
which again are done. One of the ones you've mentioned is done. It's almost better the way it's done than they would do it today because they'd show it all. Whereas here, the
yeah,
camera turns away as if it even can't bear to look at it.
yeah.
But of course, that's a budget thing. Um,
Yes.
and that's Corman. That's what Corman does. That's what he was so good at. So
Yeah,
yeah, I was surprised by the violence in this. Again, we'll get onto it.
yeah.
But
Well, I guess we can dive a bit more into the behind the camera and talk
mhm.
about Corman and the true story that this is sort of loosely based off of. I mean,
Yeah,
you mentioned already that yes, that Corman is famous for producing cheap films. He's been described as a hustler in certain places. Um, because he is out to make movies quickly and get the biggest bang for his buck. He's also very, very, very pulpy.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
working with science fiction movies, Western movies, like some of his movies, like this, like Swamp Woman and the Wasp Woman, like
The
just to
Wasp
give
Woman. Yeah, yeah,
just to
and
give you an
also
idea of what kind of like cheap, campy stuff he's
yeah,
playing with early on at this
the
point.
man with X-ray eyes. That's always been one of my favorites. But again, that has the message behind the film, The Man with X-ray Eyes,
Mm,
is much darker and more philosophical than the title, The Man with X-ray Eyes, would suggest. And
yes.
again, that's Corman. But yeah, Wasp
Mm,
Woman is another favorite.
yeah. He also famously produced the 1994 never released Fantastic Four film,
Yes,
which
yes,
is which was only made as a ploy to for whoever was owning the rights at the time to keep the rights.
yeah,
And the film was premiered somewhere, but then never officially released, never fully completed either. But I have seen it, and I mean, it's better than the 2005
yeah,
Fantastic Four
by
movie.
a long way, really.
And I frankly, I think the Thing as a sort of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle puppet face guy is pretty freaking awesome,
Pretty
actually.
good, yeah, yeah,
I think they were cooking with something, and they really could have, if they had given that a bit more time and actually were serious about it, they probably could have done something really cool with the Fantastic Four in the 90s,
yeah.
if they gave it a
It,
shot.
yeah, it's a good starting. It's a good starting block to make a
Mm,
Fantastic Four film.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's got a huge. I mean, he directed so many films and produced so many films.
Yeah,
And as you said, he helped lots of people get off the ground. Nicholson. Was it
Peter Fonda.
Scorsese as well? Who?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Peter
Yeah,
Fonda,
Peter Fonda. Yeah,
Dennis
yeah,
Hopper, Dennis Hopper,
yeah,
Bruce Dern,
yeah,
all those sort of people, all
yeah,
those of that time that went on to be big stars. Corman somewhere um, was behind them. You know, Scorsese, Coppola, Ron Howard, Jonathan Demme, Peter Dog,
yeah.
Peter Bogdanovich. That all those people owe a debt to James Cameron. I think even owes a debt to Corman
Mm,
somewhere down the line. He was massively
yeah,
influential.
yeah,
And
yes,
Demi repays him by he has a cameo in Silence of the Lambs as the
yes.
FBI. Is he the FBI director or somebody?
I think so.
He's some big
Yeah.
cheese. Um, but yeah, I mean, a man who was committed to cinema in almost every way.
Yes, yes. And so his first film, Five Guns West, he worked with the screenwriter Robert Campbell on that as well. And also had him work on this on Machine Gun Kelly.
Mm,
Corman hired Campbell, and he's quoted as saying, because Campbell wrote, quote, very good, wrote a very good script with strong, well sketched characters, referring to what his work previously. And I think that also translates well into Machine Gun Kelly.
yeah, I think so.
I think there are well sketched characters. I think even though then maybe not all the actors are up to scratch, I think the material that they're working with, there's a lot of people on screen, and they're surprisingly vivid for what short amount of time some of them get.
Yeah, there's no confusing any of these characters. You know,
No, I was worried
even the
that was gonna
ones who,
happen.
yeah, even the ones who serve similar functions and are just
Mm,
token gang members, they all have a distinct personality that
yes.
means you don't get them mixed up and you don't forget which one of them is which. You know, which
No.
is a huge help in a film like this.
Yes, yes. Now, I don't know what the impetus was for them to want to do a based on a true story, film, why Machine Gun Kelly was chosen. Other than maybe the name is a badass name. I mean, it's a fantastic name for a film. It's deliciously noir.
Very noir, yeah,
It's a
and
shame that
very
some like
1930.
crappy rapper uses it now as his
It,
name.
it's a shame that actually it's a shame that he is the first thing that comes up when you Google the name Machine Gun Kelly. It
That
really is.
irritated the shit out of
Yeah,
me.
really, really badly. Um,
Yep.
but it is. I mean, it's a great 1930s gangster name in it. It's just
Yeah.
typical of the time. But
Yes.
I don't really know what pushed him to do it, other than this is something that we will touch on, no doubt, when we talk about the real Machine Gun Kelly. But this perceived sort of cowardice that Corman
Mm,
saw in him, that he thought was a sort of interesting psychological
yes.
hook. But I don't know. I got the impression that he sort of ran in the wrong direction with it, really. But
Maybe.
we can talk about that. But I think
Yeah.
that was one of the things that the real Machine Gun Kelly's end was a bit sort of an anticlimax. and
Yes.
it was a way of creating a good movie character around, based around him for that reason.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's safe to say that this is just based on a real person who committed similar crimes, but this is not a historical reenactment, you
No,
know?
this is not a biopic by any
No,
stretch.
no. It's not like going and watching a film about Pearl Harbor. It's not watching Pearl Harbor. It's not watching whatever. It's loosely based.
Loosely based on a bloke.
Yes, yeah. Who used a machine gun. Was known for his using a machine gun. He was a bootlegger. The real George Kelly. He was a bootlegger. They robbed some banks. Then
They
got arrested.
they,
They did kidnap
they
an
did
oil
kidnap.
tycoon's daughter.
Yeah.
And when we get into the story, we can talk a bit about that. But there's a lot that happens in a short amount of time that I couldn't help but sometimes feeling like maybe you could have done a little bit less here to do a little bit more there.
Yeah, me too. Me
And
too.
the oil tycoon, the kidnapping of the oil tycoon's daughter is one of those things where
Absolutely.
that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, the gang was going to collect $200,000 ransom at the time, which in 2025 equates to $4.89 million.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's
That's
huge.
huge.
That should have
Huge.
been a huge part of the film, not the last 20 minutes.
Not the last one. No, absolutely. And there's so much. Although it's got some good dialogue, but when they go to what I think is meant to be like a brothel, to
Yeah,
say with
Flo's mom's house.
Flo's
Yeah,
mum's house, I could have done with a lot less of that, to be quite honest. I didn't know it
well,
at the time. I didn't know it watching it. This is what's interesting. I didn't know it watching it, but for the very reason you've just said, when it comes on to the kidnap plot,
mm,
I was thinking, well, why am I not getting more of a setup to this and more of the planning of this instead of hanging around with
yep.
Flo's mum?
I agree. I agree. I agree. Now, there is an interesting crossover with this film and the film Public Enemies, which was a Michael
Mm,
Mann film in 2009 starring Johnny Depp,
Johnny
which
Depp, yeah,
I remember when that film was being made. Interestingly enough, I was living in Indiana when that film was filming because they were doing some filming in Indiana because it takes place partly in Indiana. Then I was in London when the film premiered, and I was in Leicester Square during the premiere and saw Johnny Depp at the premiere of this film. That's my story. But it's interesting that so when Kelly, the real George Kelly, was arrested, he is a huge, he's public enemy. They want to catch this guy. They want him brought in, but his arrest is overshadowed because of the Dillinger gang breaking out of prison.
breaking out of
Which
prison.
which
Yeah,
he famously used a bar of soap and whittled it into a gun. There's speculation if that's true or not, but heyo, but they're breaking out of prison in Michigan City, Indiana, overshadowed the arrest of Machine Gun Kelly, who had abducted this oil tycoon's daughter.
yeah. What can you say?
It's a shame. He went out with a whimper, which I would say even in the film he sort of goes out with a whimper.
Yeah, and I think that's what fascinated Corman. I think that he just
Mm,
seems to give up. Because he just sort of says he just surrenders.
yes.
Um, and says something, or he's alleged to have said something like "Don't shoot, G-man," which is where the term G-men for the FBI agents comes from. I'm not sure if I believe that, but
Yeah.
that sounds like a bit of hokey Hollywood
Yeah, I'm not
manipulation
I'm not
somewhere down the
sure.
line.
Yeah.
But that's what I think. That's what attracted Coleman, the fact that he just after committing this massive crime, because it was a massive crime, he just gives up and makes no effort to sort of escape. Really, he just falls to his knees and he takes
Mhm.
that idea and runs with it. Again, like saying in the opposite direction. But I mean, there was the kidnap case also had some. It resurrected the idea of the Lindbergh law about kidnappers crossing state lines. So
Mm.
because Lindbergh's son had been kidnapped, which is the basis for Murder on the Orient Express, as an aside. And there was a lot of similar type crimes that eventually, and Kelly's crimes were one of them. Kelly's kidnapping was one of them that brought that back into the forefront of the lawmakers' minds, so that they then instigated the Lindbergh Law. So I mean, it was a big deal,
yeah,
all around. But it largely
goddamn you, Dillinger.
Yeah, yeah.
So
just because he escaped
with a whittled gun made out of a bar of soap.
yeah.
So American International Pictures are the ones who made this movie, and their whole specialty was low budget B movies. Their target audience were teens and drive-ins.
Yeah.
And this film was meant to be a double hitter with another. I can't remember what the other film was, but I mean, you think about it, an hour and 20, 2 films, an hour and 20. That's an evening out. Sitting in your car with your arm around your lady.
I think was the other film not the Bonnie Parker story?
Maybe, I can't remember.
Based on Bonnie and Clyde. So two similar films, I suppose. I think it was.
Yes.
But yeah, two films for that, which of course is what used to happen. Used to get double bills and B movies and A movies and all the rest of it.
Yeah. And they knew that they knew they could count on Roger to crank out a crime drama quick and cheap. Mean Streets will return right after this. Who doesn't love a good boxing movie? Well, Steve Hunt presents the Boxing Movie Podcast. On each episode, Steve and his guests discuss a movie that has boxing as a theme. Do not be put off if you're not a fan of boxing, though. Of course, he covers the likes of Rocky and the sequels, but the depth of boxing-themed movies across cinema history is much greater than you might imagine. Boxing Movie Podcast has covered the early works of Hitchcock, explored the world of blaxploitation cinema and the golden age of film noir, with episodes covering The Setup, Champion, and Stanley Kubrick's Killer's Kiss. You might not have previously considered yourself a boxing movie fan, but after listening to a few episodes of the Boxing Movie Podcast, you may have to reconsider that view. Find the Boxing Movie Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you love Mean Streets, join us on Patreon and get exclusive perks, insider access, and a chance to shape the show.
Depending on the tier of your choice, get early episode access, your name in the credits, and have your questions read on air.
You can help us choose films for us to review, unlock exclusive commentaries and reviews, and join our members-only YouTube Live Q&As.
So slip on your trench coats, pull your fedoras down, and join us on Patreon today.
And cheap. And he did that, but he did approach it. He approached it with an interest, which is what I like. And he's, he's not quoted as saying, but it's attributed to him that, what he sort of liked about this film was he was really attracted to this character, and he wanted to do something a little bit deeper with, the kind of gangsters and guns, and basically do a kind of a character study. And it's a bold thing to do for a B movie, because that's like saying that's like saying, oh, what's his name? Who did those shitty Transformer movies? That's like trying to say you're doing a character. Michael Bay. That's like trying to say Michael Bay wanted to do a character study with Shia LaBeouf's character.
Shia LaBeouf.
in Transformers. This is really the quality of film that Roger was supposed to make. It's dumb summer movie for kids, but I like that he tried to do something. I like that he wanted to go a bit deeper with it. I appreciate that, and I
think given the limitations of how much money he had, which wasn't a lot, and how much time he had, which wasn't a lot, I think he does a pretty good job of making Kelly an interesting character that's a bit different to all the gangsters you'll have seen before. He's the whole obsession with death and stuff. Is an interesting psychological hook that really arises from him giving himself up in real life. That's the springboard that makes Corman say, "Well, why would he do that?" "Oh, I know, this reason." It would have been so easy to just make Kelly a Scarface ripoff from 1930, whenever that was, 32 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
or a James Cagney ripoff, or any of those sort of people that were famous
Yeah.
for playing gangster anti-heroes. It would have been easy to make him one of these, and he doesn't. Corman and Bronson make him something completely different.
Yes. Yes. And I
That's to be
think, I mean,
credited, I think, and lauded.
yes. I mean, I think they said shot within 8 to 10 days for
Yeah,
$60,000.
I
It's
mean,
impressive.
that is impressive. That is
You know,
impressive. Do you
it's
think it looks like it was shot in 10 days for $60,000?
I mean, no, you can I don't want to say that it looks cheap. You can tell that it's cheap because there there is a lack of diverse sets. There's a lot of
Hmm.
backlot. There's a lot of lot using a lot of a lot of that. But there's also a lot of we have this room and we are going to film 15 minutes of the film in this room. We need this room to last for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so like the once after the gang have knocked off their first bank and there's that big sort of chase, they then hang out in a room and talk for a very long,
For a
very
long
long
time.
time, and I think that's where you can kind of, and same way when they get to Flo's mother's house, they're at her house for a very long time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where you can feel the budget constraints of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think overall it does what, you know, it does what the sort of early Hammer films did, Hammer horror films did, which was
Mm,
one big house that was all their sets,
yeah,
just
yeah,
redecorated,
yeah,
but done with such flair and style that you almost can't tell. You have to watch them a
yeah,
fair few times to be able to tell. And
yes,
and I think because even in those long talking sequences in Machine Gun Kelly, in the same way that you're not bored in a stage play, I wasn't necessarily bored by them.
correct.
I was just thinking, this is going on a long time. This is,
Mm,
and what point are we leading up to here? But I
mhm.
wasn't sort of, flicking through the internet or,
No,
looking at a shopping list while I was doing, you know what I mean? I
mm,
was still engaged with it.
yeah,
Um, so it's style, isn't it? It's the way the material is treated and acted and directed and stuff. When you've got no cash,
yes, yes,
it's a
yes.
skill in
Now
itself.
it definitely is. I mean, I guess we can kind of dive more deeply into the story. Um, I really enjoyed the opening credits.
Yeah,
Again, they're a bit cheap. they're
yeah,
like they're
yeah,
cheap, sort of, just cheap sketches, sort of thing. That it's like we only have a few minutes. Can you just like sketch up some stuff? But there is a sense of sort of, but there is a cool sort of pulpy vibe to
yeah. I
them.
thought
There's
that.
the
I thought
little
that.
cars, little faces of gangsters, and there's all these gun holes getting shot in the screen as well. With fun jazzy music, it had a really interesting vibe to it that I don't know if it I don't know if the music fit the rest of the film
No,
that was going to happen, but it was certainly an interesting opening.
the
I
the
think, but
music started to get on my nerves after a while. I started It started to give me a headache after a while, but that might be more down to personal taste than anything else.
yes, yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. It's fair enough, but
There
yeah,
were
but
some
but
there were
ag
some bits of the score that were a bit sort of too jazzy at inappropriate moments, it seemed to me.
yes, yes, yes. No, I agree. I agree with that. Um,
But I love the sketches, the credits. I thought they were really, really they were pulpy, but in a good way, in a sort of
yeah,
satisfying way. You
yeah.
know,
It's like stuff you could see like on the cover, maybe of like Black Mask magazine or
yeah,
something along those lines.
yeah,
But it's almost like it's like first draft though. There was definitely a sort of storyboard element
yeah, yeah.
to
They're
the
not proper.
to the to the drawing.
Yeah, well, they're not proper drawings, are they? They're not like paintings or anything. They look like pencil sketches.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Which it's effective. It worked. It's
it
tough. It's
works.
gritty. It worked. It worked fine enough. Um, No, I did like that opening scene because the opening scene is it's interesting because there's no talking for a very long time.
Mhm.
And it's effective and
Yeah,
it works well.
it
But
is.
I love that bit where Machine Gun Kelly is walking down the street. He's clearly got his gun in his briefcase thing. Um, and he stops outside of the funeral home, and it's like, wreaths, and he's visibly shaken by that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love that motif that you mentioned that keeps coming back through, because the next time he's outside of a funeral home while people are rockily dealing with a coffin,
With a coffin. Yeah,
it's like, oh damn, and then he has that nightmare at the end where he's thinking that he's been put into a coffin. And
yeah,
I like this sort of, and like this, and the scene where Flo's dad is giving him a drink, and he's having a nice conversation with Flo's dad, but because he sees a skull and crossbones tattoo on his
tattoo
forearm,
on his yeah.
yeah,
He
he's
loses
like,
it.
"Get away from me." Da, 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 da.
Yeah, yeah.
This fear of death
Because he's terrified of dying.
thematically is wonderfully peppered
Yeah,
throughout the film. And I liked it. I
I
liked I
liked it.
liked how that was done.
And this is Corman's explanation for why the real Kelly
Mm,
didn't try and have a shootout and just buckled and caved in because he's frightened of being killed,
yeah,
because he's frightened of death. So, it's a nice springboard. Like I said before, it's a nice springboard into a nice little psychological um hook
mm,
that the film then plays with and progresses.
yeah,
And it
yeah. No,
and it's
it
his
does.
character flaw. It's his tragic flaw as a character that it is his undoing essentially.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think it works quite well. It's a bit simple, perhaps. These days we'd go into much more detail on it, but I think Coleman does enough. I think Coleman he gives you the idea, he runs with it, and he repeats it so that you know what Bronson's thinking, and it's there just enough in 80 minutes for it to have an
yeah,
impact,
yeah,
and to explain
yeah,
his characterization and his choices. I
yeah.
think
No,
it's well
I
done.
totally agree. I totally
Yeah,
agree. I
I,
totally
I
agree.
liked it. I liked it.
The bank scene was fun. The initial robbery scene, because as you mentioned, they run inside, and then you see in shadow a teller, their hand goes up, and
Yeah,
then
and a
then
gun.
you and then a gun, then you hear some shooting, and then you see one cop get shot, and then they run out. um Now, if I'm not mistaken, the shadows happen, I think, on the left hand side,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they are on the right hand side.
yeah. I
So the
didn't really.
shadows don't actually make sense.
No, I thought it looked very nice, but I didn't know where the light source was.
I was like, "So this is a mirror shot from this side of the room
Yeah,
to."
yeah.
Okay,
Looks good,
alright.
but physics might have something to say about it.
Yes, yes. And it's a simple fix of, like, and this is where it's like, look, they shot this film in 8 days, they're not thinking this stuff through fully.
Yeah.
They're just banging it out quick. The kids watching the film aren't gonna care that much about it, really, but it's
No.
one of those, if you just had them run in that way, just run
Yeah,
into the left.
it's
Not
one
right.
more shot. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Just
it.
just 2 more minutes thought, Roger, and you could have had a really good opening instead of just a good one.
Exactly,
But it
exactly, and
but it
then
is very noir, very noir.
mm,
And again, no cash. So it's the best. It says a lot without really having to do anything.
yeah, yeah,
But you're right,
yeah.
the shadows look great, but they make no sense.
No. And I like the call, speeding off and dumping the clothes and all that kind of,
Yeah, all
that
that
was fun.
getaway stuff was great.
Again, you can tell they're padding this out because that goes on for a very long time.
Yeah.
We get the picture very quickly, but we're going to see every character in that car change clothes and dump their weapons and where they go after they get out of the car. Like, we get it.
Yeah,
We get it. We
yeah.
got it.
Because really, if they only showed you what you need to see in this film, it would probably have been an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, because it'd only be
Yes.
about 30 minutes long. So
Yes.
there is a lot of padding in this film, it's fair to say.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could easily re-edit Machine Gun Kelly down to a solid 45 minutes. I think you could do it to,
Yeah, I think you could.
yeah,
I think you
for
could.
sure. Um, It was I like the moment when Kelly got into the car with Flo. She, Susan Cabot, what a character. What
I think
a
she's
lady.
brilliant in this.
She is, she is. She sort of just keeps I don't know what my expectations were of her, but she just didn't like, she kept, like, becoming more interesting along the way. Maybe even more interesting than Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, yeah, I know why you're saying that.
Hmm.
And I think the dynamic is good in that it's Cabot's character that is Flo, that is needling him all the time
Mm.
and egging him on, and and it winds him up, and the way that
Yeah.
is done, I think they're a great double act. I think they're a really strong double act,
Yes, yes.
and she
'Cause
is a bit more fascinating because why does she do it? I don't get why
yeah.
is she involved with these people?
Yes.
Because she's obviously bright, isn't she? And
Yes.
sort of clever. And you think, well, why is she not honest? What's happened?
Yes. Well, we
To make
understand it when we meet her parents.
later, yeah, later on. But
You
she's
know?
much more than just a mole. I mean, she's not Bonnie from Bonnie and
Mm-mm.
Clyde by any means. She's
No.
she's much more the leader almost
Yes.
of the gang
Yes.
rather than Kelly himself,
Yes. I saw her definitely as the brains of this
of the whole
operation.
thing. Yeah.
She's sort of setting up a lot of what they do. After this initial robbery, she sets up the kidnapping, she sets up the next bank robbery. Like, she's very instrumental in helping them plan that stuff.
Yeah.
And when it comes time for the other gangster to threaten Kelly, they threaten her. They go to her
Mm.
because
Yeah.
she's the
And
head
then
of the organization.
because she's the head. Yeah, she's the head. And it's her that goads him
Mm,
into getting retribution, and
yeah.
going back to the gang, because one of his gang goes to a rival gang,
Yes.
and it's Flo that sets that in motion, that
Yeah.
sort of retribution, and get rid of him.
Yes.
But she does it in the way that all these noir uh, female characters do it. She does it by pressing the right buttons
Yes.
in him, because she knows exactly where to press him to get him to do what she wants him to do,
Mm,
and I think she's a really strong character in this, Flo, and I think she's played brilliantly um by Susan Cabot. I think it's a great performance.
yes. Yeah. I agree. I was taken by her role. I thought generally she was great. Now, I, this is again, this is where it's like you got the time constraints, you got the budget constraints, but this is again where you do have these problems where there is maybe too much happening, where you have the first robbery, which is fine, they get away, and then there's just sort of pause where we
Yeah.
don't know what they're gonna do next. And you're like, where are we going, guys? Where are we going? And then they finally set up another robbery, which then doesn't go over very well. It doesn't go over at all. He loses a guy, some guys, and blah blah blah. Excuse me. But then after that, then that's when they go and hide out at Flo's house. And this is when we start learning about this other gang,
Mm.
this rival gang that they're taking over what he's doing. He needs to back off. Da, 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 da. And it's telling us a lot without showing us much at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is where I sort of was like, well, yeah, this is kind of interesting, but like, do we need this rival gang? Because I mean, the scene where he goes to their headquarters and mows them all down with the machine gun is fantastic. That's a
Yeah, it
great
is.
bit of drama and action.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know who the other gang guy is. I don't know who these people are that he's mowing down. They don't mean anything to me. It's just an action scene for an action scene's sake that you could have done. You could have done more with. You could have had one bank robbery, then some drama with the gang, and then you decide, and build that up a little bit, like make that
Yeah.
part of the thing. Okay, well, he's been run out of the area and he can't do any more bank robberies. All right, I got this idea. Let's go abduct this girl.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it is a great visual sequence. And like I say, it's Flo that puts him up to it, and that is a great dramatic sequence when she is needling him into doing it. So those two sequences together really pay off, but they pay off something that hasn't been set up properly. Yeah. And I agree. I think much as I would hate to see them go, I would rather have seen more bank robberies and escapes and getaways, whilst at the same time seeing the gang turning on itself, because that's essentially what is happening.
Yeah.
Or keep those scenes in and give me more of an indication of who this rival gang is, maybe by way of, I don't know, a minor shootout, or they hit the same bank at the same time or something. I mean, I don't know, whatever it might be. But you're right, they are faceless. Apart from one, I think is Howard not one of his old gang.
Yeah, he's the defector, isn't he? He's the
defector. But the other blokes around the table are meaningless people. They're stormtroopers.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who they are. So I mean, and if it's only Howard the defector he's got to kill, he could just do that in Howard's backyard.
Exactly.
That would have had an equal dramatic effect. So that's a bit of it. That's a low point, if you like, for.
Yeah. And again, this is where it's like shot in 8 days, probably written very quickly.
Yeah.
Not a lot of thought is being put in. Some thought. Yeah. There is an artistry to this film, but it's very much like that first draft syndrome. You've written a pretty decent first draft. Let's give it some. Let's massage it a little bit. No, we're going to film it right now. Yeah. Okay.
Or even worse, like you say, the average audience for this is, I don't know, 12-year-old, 15-year-old kids. Maybe it's the audience won't care.
Well, I think there's part of that.
The audience will just accept there's a rival gang and he goes and kills them.
I was thinking about that because I was thinking about what are you doing at a drive-in? Well, a drive-in, you're not really gonna. A drive-in is like the equivalent of like watching a film on your phone while you're on the bus. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be able to pay that much attention. You're not going to be able to see everything. Kids, you're getting out of your car. You're going to the concession stand. You're getting your popcorn, your hot dogs, your soda pops. There's a lot of that going on. So they're probably, that's the other thing. It's like there's probably needs to be there's probably an intentional amount of padding so that the story is so simple and easy to follow that if you've been gone for 10 minutes, when you come back, you can pick up and carry on.
You've missed nothing, essentially. Yeah. Whereas, it's not a film to watch. I mean, I watched it in like a concentrated hour and 20 minutes. So these flaws appear. But if I'd gone to make myself, a drink or get a bag of popcorn, or trying to whisper sweet nothings in the ear of my date in the drive-thru,
exactly.
I won't have missed anything, will I?
Nope. Exactly. Now, it was really funny when we finally got to Flo's house, her parents' house. I laughed when the sleazy, sexy music was playing when the girls were looking out the window. Just so it was a perfect audible cue, musical cue to say this is a house of
ill repute.
Sex workers. We'll call them sex workers.
Yeah.
That's what people want them to be called now.
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating though that Flo walks in. I'm like, oh, are these her sisters? No.
Yeah. I thought it was great when she says, is this the new girl? And she says, no, it's my daughter.
Yeah. I was like, oh.
The assumption is that she's a sex worker. It's
Her mom is the madam. Her mom is the madam.
There's some great dialogue in this first encounter though. Where he says, tell your old lady to keep her wisecracks behind her teeth or she's going to be wearing false ones. And the mother, quick as a flash, replies, I already do, smart Alec. I thought that was a great exchange.
It's true. The mom berating Kelly was really great stuff.
He's awfully cocky for a man. He's awfully cocky for a man who can't even crack a Hick Town bank.
Yes.
Because
Yes, I mean,
the
she's
best thing about that
chopping
line
him
is it's
down.
yeah, the best bit about that line is it's true, you know,
Yes,
and he hates the fact that it's true. It's so good, so
yes,
well done.
yes, yes. So I really enjoyed that overall scene. I do feel like after that scene we were done, but they sort of keep it going. There's like he's cuddling and kissing
Yeah, I
one of
didn't
the
need any of that.
girls, and I'm like, "What are you doing? What's the
Yeah,
point?" And then Flo comes back and knocks her down, and it's
yeah.
like, I don't know
We didn't
what this is for, why we're doing
no,
this.
I
Okay.
didn't know what that was for because I didn't need any further evidence that Flo is tough.
No,
So,
no.
it's not to show me that. It's all it does is show me that Kelly is just like a bit of a no mark, but I knew that as well. So it doesn't
Yeah,
serve any purpose,
no.
really, you know.
It doesn't. It was a weird one. It was definitely a weird one. I didn't need it. I definitely didn't need it. And then
Well, this
again,
is
this
the
is
scene I'm talking about when I'd
going.
sorry. Well, I was just gonna say this is the scene I was talking about when I'd rather have less of this stuff and more planning the abduction.
Yes, yes, yes. Exactly, because after this, we get during in between these scenes of the mother berating and the kissing of the other lady. This is when Flo is confronted by the other gangsters, like, "Oh, tell Kelly to back off." And it's like, "Okay, cool." And then they just have a scene of him mowing them
Yeah.
down, and you're like, "Okay, is that gonna go anywhere?" "No, no, no." And you're like, "Oh, okay, that's not going anywhere either.
No,
Okay,
no.
cool scene, but doesn't really mean anything. All right,
Yeah,
fine."
yeah,
Um, and then even when we
yeah.
get
So this
the
section does sort
reveal
of this is
of
what you could cut out.
yeah, definitely. And when you get that reveal of the next thing is, oh well, we're gonna go kidnap this girl, and Flo is the one who has scouted her out and set this whole thing up. You're like, well, you could have planned this a bit more with him. You
Yeah,
both could have been involved. Like
yeah,
you could have made it. It sort of makes Kelly feel like he's just an instrument, a tool, and
mm,
he's not proactive.
no, no. He's not the leader. And where does
Mm-mm.
the idea of the kidnapping come from? He just seems to suddenly decide he's going to make it big by kidnapping a girl. There's no
Yeah.
nothing's put that in his nothing that we see certainly has put that in his head.
Mm, no.
He has just had that idea and then announces it. And she
Yeah.
goes along with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very strange.
It is. It is. It was a little bit disappointing because that's like we said earlier. That's such a huge dramatic moment that you would have thought this is where you put your weight is how are we going to abduct this girl? And then it's just, oh, there she is. Put her in the car. Oh, there's her nurse. Put her nurse in the car as well. All right, we got him. Let's go.
We'll have
All
her as
right.
well. Yeah. Because he says to the girl, don't worry about your nurse. We'll be taking her too.
Yeah, and they just make them both get in the car. You're like,
What are you
all right.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah. It is a bit silly.
Weird.
It was a bit fast and it's just they're just moving things along. They're not wasting time. They're not letting things breathe. They're just you feel it. You're it is sort of disappointing. And then of course, once we get to when we get to the house where they're being held ransom and stuff, we don't really see what's going on with the girl's dad. We don't really get the sense of what that drama is really like for the other people involved. You hear some stuff over the radio, but that's about it.
No.
But I will say the scene that really shocked me
Yeah.
though was when
Yeah. And
one
we could
of
have seen all
Kelly's
that.
friends was going to looks at the nurse and is like looking her up and down, and I mean the actress is a gorgeous woman. Then this guy comes up to her and he's like,
Mm.
"You got a boyfriend?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Is he as big as I am?" And she's like, "I don't know." And then he's basically he's planning to take her into the
Yeah.
other room and have his way with her, and she's about to freak out. But then I do sort of like that Kelly stops it. He's like, he gets his gun out and he's like, "Leave her alone." I'm like, "Okay,
Leave her
good,"
alone.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
that got
Absolutely.
dark real quick.
Yeah, yes, it does. And again, with no sort of build up to it, he's just suddenly doing it.
Yeah, it just happens. Whoa.
It just happens. It's just suddenly you're sort of having to deal with it, and you say, well, where's this come from? You know?
Oh man, yeah, it was nuts. And then of course you get to the drop off scene where Harry once again double crosses, and they know he's going to double cross, so they tried to get the double crosser, but they don't get it in time, and then it all sort of falls. Everything sort of falls where they are, where they're hiding out. The cops have found them, and there's the sort of the shootout scene and stuff like that, and it's it, I will say it's interesting. Right before the shootout scene, Flo really rips into Kelly, and she's like, saying how she made him and I mothered you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And, and then she like pretends to like want to go off with the other guy for half a second and then doesn't. And it gets a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's massively convoluted as to what she is doing and what
he's
her
doing. Yeah,
plan is.
yeah,
Like, that got weird as well. That last act is so muddy. The
rushed.
the opening is all the way up until that second robbery, and then they get to Flo's mom's house. Is pretty much fine, but
Mm.
after that, it just goes into chaos of here's a shoot 'em up scene, here's an abduction scene, here's a molestation scene,
Yeah,
here's the
yeah,
girlfriend turning on him, and wait, now she's back on his arm. Like, geez.
yeah. And all it's showing, of course, is that they're surrounded and they're all turning on each other.
Mm,
But they should really be turning on. For me, they should be turning on each other before all that.
yeah.
Because they should
Yes.
be falling to pieces. So once they've kidnapped the girl, I think really then there should have been some sense of, well, now we don't know what to do because they've not paid the ransom.
Yeah.
So well, this was your idea. What should you do? You tell us
Mhm.
what to do. And then
Yeah.
they start to bicker, and then things start to go wrong.
Yes.
And there should have been some sense of that rather than, well, the police have surrounded us. It's all too late, so I'm off.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
going, and you can do what you like, and I'll just shoot this fella that betrayed us with one arm, and then we'll all just sort of die.
Yes. The
It,
the bickering scene that happened after the first bank heist should have happened at this
at
moment.
this scene, yes,
That's when that should have happened,
yeah, absolutely,
for sure.
absolutely. We've not talked about the cat.
Talk about the cat.
Do you want to mention the cat?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a big cat, but this is a pretty grim scene as well,
Mm.
in a different way. So uh, this is the one of the sort of Joker sides of the members of the group. He's this part could have been played by Alicia Cook Jr. for me.
Mm.
He's that sort of gangster. He's the sort of the Fink, isn't he? Because he grasses in the end, and he's one of the previous heists. He's stolen some of the money for himself, so they give him a kicking for that, and then essentially Kelly feeds him to a. I'm not. What is it? Is it a cheetah or
Looks
something?
like
Or
what looks
is it a panther?
they try to imply that it's like a cat from like Africa or something, but
Yeah,
it's clearly just a mountain lion.
mountain
It's
lion. Yeah, yeah, and he feeds it his arm,
yes.
and the camera, like I said before, the camera sort of turns away because there's no money. But the implication is the camera can't even bear to look at how gruesome this is,
Mm,
and I quite like the fact that it's left to your own imagination what happens,
I
but
do too.
it seems unnecessarily violent to me. To
Yes.
feed, why don't you just shoot him?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It would have made
There's
more
no
sense to have
purpose in
shot.
keeping him alive, is there? He's betrayed the gang by trying to steal some of the money that that the other gang want back. That's one of the plot points. They want the
Mhm.
money. They want the money back. So I don't see why the solution to that isn't to just kill him rather than half feed him to a giant cat.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly.
But it makes for a very tense scene. You know, and
It
it's a
does.
shocking scene, but
It
it's
does.
not a logical scene, I don't think.
No. 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 No, I agree. It's, I in many ways, I feel like the cat stuff was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was just, "Hey, we got this cat.
Yeah.
You wanna put
Yeah.
this mountain lion in your
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah.
Okay."
Should we feed Fandango to it? Well, yeah, but we need him to grass them up to the police. That's how the police find him. So just give it his arm.
Yeah. That is
You know,
exactly it. My
because he's a
god.
total plot point, isn't he, Fandango? He's a pure plot cipher.
He is.
Um,
He is.
so it all felt unnecessary to me in retrospect. You know,
Yeah.
once the film had finished, at the time I thought, blimey, that is violent. This film for 1958, this film is violent. You know, because
It's
there's
very violent.
Flo gets slapped around. It's not just your normal gangster shootouts. It's feeding people to wild animals, and you know, beating up women. Really,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, well, true, because Kelly pops, Flo a good number
a
of times,
really
like,
good one. Yeah,
"Jeez."
a really like proper punch.
Yeah. Yes. Especially well, that final punch where he knocks her out, like, "Damn.
Knocks her out. Yeah, yeah,
Jeez, man."
yeah, yeah. That's a bit. You know, it's very uncomfortable to see.
It is, and I guess the thing, your takeaway, I guess, from all this is that these aren't good people, and they're not trying to, and I guess I kinda respect Corman for this. He's not trying to make these guys lovable gangsters.
No, 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 no.
Everyone
Quite.
is crooked and vile and evil,
Yeah.
and there's no Jack Sparrow. You know what I mean?
There's no Jack Sparrow. There's no Jack Sparrow, and there's not even that sort of glorification of like the Cray twins that you get in films about the Cray twins, where
Yeah, yeah.
there's always an emphasis on like how popular they were with the entertainment world and the showbiz world, and how they were, you know, well dressed and all that business. When
Mm,
really you should be concentrating on what they were.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
none of that. Nobody here is glorified in any way whatsoever, and I quite admire that.
yeah.
Including Flo. Including Flo. I
Mm,
mean, she's as rotten as the rest of them,
she is. She
you
is.
know. And I think that's a great part for Susan Cabot, who was a Corman favorite. Um,
Mm,
and she plays this to the hilt. She really does. But and I think it might not be the right way of. It's impressive that it's so difficult to watch because it would be in the circumstances. You know, if you were there, if it was
mm,
real, it'd be
yeah,
horrendous to see.
yeah.
And I like the film doesn't back away from it.
Mm-mm.
You know,
No, no. It's
I think it's quite a brave move. But
yeah.
and I
Corman
prefer
gave
it to
some
Jack.
heart to a B movie. He gave some substance to a B
Yeah,
movie that
yeah,
that
yeah. That's
really didn't deserve it or require it, but he did. But he did.
yeah. He didn't didn't deserve it or require it. That's great. What a summary.
You know.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
because the other bit that I sort of found a bit kinda superfluous, though, was also every once in a while, the film would cut to the cops and show us them talking for a second, and I'm like, "I don't know." This is where you don't know who anyone is, and you're like, "I don't
yeah.
know these people. I don't care about these people."
Don't care about you.
Like, we don't need to see the cops. We just need you could just do like what you did at the bank and just have the cops outside on their megaphones
Yeah, yeah,
shouting. That's it.
yeah,
You know, you don't even
yeah.
need the cops to come in the building. You could just
No,
have had it. You could have just had Kelly just walk out with his hands up.
yeah, exactly. You could well at the end of the big sleep. He could have just you don't see the cops at the end of that, do you?
Yeah.
It,
No.
Eddie Miles just walks out. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think the only presence the cops need is to say we've got this place surrounded in the old cliche,
Yes. Yeah.
and then they say to Fandango, "You've grassed us up, you know, in revenge, you weasel. Then they shoot him. That explains why the cops are there. And then you're right. I think he's a coward. Kelly ends up a total coward in refusing because he's so scared of death that he then, it would give him a bit of backbone almost to open the door and surrender. A much better ending. But we're on the 10th day and time's ticking.
Time's ticking. Right? We only got 4 more hours of shoot time, then we're done. We got to be done.
Yeah. And $20 left. So but yeah, I think that would have been a much stronger ending actually than the one we get, because the cops are meaningless. The cops, again, and we've said this about other films, the cops are wasted time. They're wasted screen time, and you've only got 80 minutes.
Yeah,
you can fill those. I don't know what they are, 5 or 10 minutes even of cop talk with abduction plan or gang falling apart or something else. You
could save the money on those actors and sharpen your script.
You could do that as well. Or get your shadows in the right place. Indeed. Yeah. And ditch the cat.
And ditch the cat. Exactly. There you go. Save money. Ditch the cat.
Save more money. Animal handlers and all that business. Save all that cash.
Well, I don't know. This is 1950. Were there animal handlers?
Oh, well,
who knows who was in charge of that cat at that time?
Possibly not. Perhaps it was just left in that cage. Who knows?
Yeah. Jeez. Do you have anything else to add on this? Because this, for me, I mean, that is Machine Gun Kelly.
No, I don't think I have really. I mean, it's a very short film, and there's not a lot of information out there about it. But for me, it comes down to 3 things, and that is Corman, Bronson, and Cabot, and they really make this better than it has any right to be.
Yeah, I think they do. And I guess we should probably give Robert Campbell some credit, the writer.
Yeah.
I think he, give those 4 people. It's those 4 people I think combined really make this something interesting.
Yeah, you're right, because the script isn't a bad one. It just needs one more polish, perhaps.
Yes. Well, it feels like I said, it feels like a good first draft that a second draft would have made it, even better. Could have fleshed some stuff out. But on that, I mean, should we rate it?
I'm happy to rate it.
All right. Well, as everyone knows, or if you don't know, we rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. Matt, what would you rate Machine Gun Kelly?
Well, I was going to rate it 3 for Bronson, Cabot, and Corman. Because I thought they were the 3 things that made this film worthwhile, and I did find it entertaining, very much so. My attention didn't lapse throughout it, but it did need some tightening up. Whilst I do give credit to the script, I don't think it was as polished enough to give it an extra Falcon. Certainly, and I'm going to stick with my original. I'm going to say that what makes this film for me is Bronson, Corman, and certainly Cabot. So I'm giving it 3 Falcons out of 5.
I think that is sensible. It's a solid 3. It is a B movie. It's one that you don't have to pay attention to. It's designed that way. It's just sitting in the drive-in, watching a movie with your friends, goofing off with something on that maybe you're watching, maybe you're not watching. It is fully that. It just happens to have, as I said, it happens to have some substance that it didn't need or deserve, but it did, and it makes it more enjoyable as a result. It's worth watching. It's not going to blow your mind, but it is worth your time if one wants to sit down with it and watch it.
As a noir curiosity, for the reasons we've said, the breakout reasons we've said, it's well worth for that alone.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You have a complicated protagonist or anti. He's not a hero. He's a villain. They're all villains, but you got a complicated protagonist with a very, very complicated leading lady. She is a
Mm,
complicated femme fatale that is more interesting than your protagonists, I think. So it's
very
worth your
much so.
time. It's worth examining.
I think it is. I think it is. Three. So three from both of us.
3 indeed. But I think we've thoroughly investigated Machine Gun Kelly. So Matt, after Machine Gun Kelly, we should let everybody know that we are going to take the summer off.
We are. We are. Well-earned break.
Indeed. We were we were trying to go every single week to give you guys something every single week, but life gets in the way sometimes, and we have some stuff we got to catch up on. So you know, it's the end of May. You have June, you have July, you've got your summers to hang out and have your funsies and catch up on old episodes that you've not listened to yet. And we will be back with a brand new bundle of episodes at the beginning of August.
Looking forward to it.
Indeed.
Looking forward to it.
Should we give people a hint of what's to come?
I think we should. I think it's only fair.
We will be back on August 7th with In a Lonely Place. But we have so many other cool films like Dick Tracy, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, 7, Murder My Sweet, and Blade Runner. We have a lot of really cool things coming up that I think you're going to want to tune in for. So use the summer and catch up on all of our old episodes.
Yeah, catch up on the old episodes and prepare yourselves for when we return with a whole bundle of good stuff. Classic
Indeed.
noir, neo-noir, everything.
Everything you can think of. File it away. But we'll be back next week, though, with another case. So make sure to stay tuned and like and subscribe and leave us a review if you can on Apple and Spotify and all those places. It really helps us out. But in the meantime, be sure to take care walking down those mean streets. Just want to give a quick shout out to our paying patrons. We have Steve from the Boxing Movie Podcast.
We have Garm 1981.
We have Gregory Sandoval. They are our initial ground floor patrons. So if you want to join Mean Streets and become a patron and get access to cool perks, make sure you head over to our Patreon page and subscribe today for as low as $1 a month.